But welcome everybody. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button.
I remember in middle school when you felt self-conscious if you were the last one to go through puberty. That really went topsy-turvy, didn't it?
Sometimes the house barrage, it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
Be sure to hit the notifications bell.
I actually do believe Israel won't just bomb countless civilians.
Be sure to tweet this out. Be sure to put this up on your Facebook.
You have to be kind to people. Be kind to the guys in this mess in the first place.
Put this up on your Reddit.
Chile is a country.
Be sure to cut and paste, a link to this to go into your favorite Facebook chat group.
It's good to see so many normal people in here.
Now, spanking isn't just my deep, dark personal secret. It's America's deep, dark secret.
I've never seen it explained so simply anywhere.
Put this on WhatsApp. Put this on Telegram. Put this on your favorite messenger app.
Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise. And how's everybody doing, chat? Hello, Adam 2009ization. I guess fucking YouTube has not actually fixed the display name issue yet. Hello, Riveroon, whose display name actually mysteriously works. Have you got some sort of deal with the YouTube devils that causes your display name to work properly when everybody else's fails? How's everybody doing? Okay. So, what bullshit shall we look at tonight? I think we might start out with some of the young TERFs. We have this particularly bizarre entry. I mean, this title's already a bit bizarre. If you know anything about Bernie Sanders admits Trump fixed the border. First of all, so on brand to see the young TERFs saying that, making the border deadlier for refugees is fixing it. And just accepting the white nationalist talking point that it needed to be fixed in some way other than taking down the wall and making it easier for people to cross safely. Hello, Jills. So let's check this out. This is a short one. Get us kicked off nicely.
Right? In a sense. So has historically the United States done well on the...
And one thing to note, a lot of people don't realize this about Bernie Sanders, but one of his big things is that he's very anti-immigrant. To the extent that a fucking white nationalist ghoul Lou Dobbs praised him at one point while he was still alive as being reasonable on it. And, Lou Dobbs, his whole thing was just, slagging off immigrants all over the place. Well, he sucks on this issue. He has literally claimed more than once that actually open borders is what the billionaires want, which it makes very little sense, because if you're going to say that, you have to explain why it is that the billionaires on this one issue and none other and no other are not getting what they want, but he never does, because nobody ever bothers to ask him. So, yeah. So, to say that he's admitting something when, of course, he likes shitty anti-immigrant policies. He's always has. Hello, imperialism bad. So that isn't an admission on his part. And the idea that TYT are just saying that what's going on the border now is fixing it? That's wild. Yeah, what horror movie was it? We're gonna watch another kind of horror movie now.
Democrats and Republicans protecting the border? The answer is no. Trump did a better job. I don't like Trump, but we should have a secure border, and it ain't that hard.
This whole discussion proceeds on a completely false premise. That the U.S. border, the southern border, then it's not the northern border that everybody's talking about, but the southern one, which happens to be the deadliest peacetime land border in the whole fucking world. because under Clinton already, they built a wall that closed off basically all of the safe ways of crossing it for refugees. A wall that ran right through the middle of communities. So, like, the idea that that this requires fixing, that the border is insecure, is already just nonsense. The fact is, if there's anything that needs to be fixed, it is the fact that refugees in this country do not get their rights under the Geneva Refugee Convention. You don't really hear much about that. Plattner, I was wondering when somebody was going to ask about him. Like, I don't, to me, the question about the Nazi tattoo fundamentally comes down to, like, he says he covered it over, I saw. I didn't see when he said he covered it over. I mean, anyone can get drunk and get a shitty tattoo that they don't actually realize what they're getting. I can buy that much. People do that all the time. It's part of why a decent tattoo parlor will say maybe come back and see if you still like that when you sober up. But in any case, if you sober up, you realize, oh shit, that's not just a cute piratey skull and crossbones, that's a fucking Totenkopf, and I gotta get that covered up. That's one thing. I've heard him say that he didn't know. That he actually did not know what he was getting. But yeah, I mean, if he knew it, then, I mean, if that is the case, and from my understanding from everything I've heard that he said, he says he didn't, which I can at least initially credit, then, yeah, but if he did, then that's absolutely, oh, okay. That's another matter entirely.
To do. Biden didn't do it. Those before him did not do it.
I mean, first of all, the other thing that's bullshit about this is that what Biden did was expand vastly on Trump's completely illegal and murderous fucking policy on the border. He did not reverse any of it. He actually invoked Title 42 more. He actually made it official policy to refuse to allow refugees to enter the country for the pendency of their asylum proceedings.
Should have a secure border, period.
That was Senator Bernie Sanders on Tim Dillon's podcast, admitting that Democrats
not admitting.
Not done as good of a job at securing the border as Republicans have, specifically Donald Trump. So the interview was about an hour long. They covered plenty of topics, including the Democratic culture wars, Zoran Mandani, Elon Musk, crime rates in blue cities, healthcare, all kinds of things. It's probably a lot of the same Bernie talk.
I mean, and they call this a bombshell. This has been his position. He's been on record with this position for, like, at least 20 years.
Points that this audience is very familiar with already, but Bernie is talking here to a mostly right-wing audience. Tim Dillon actually seemed receptive to a lot of what Bernie was saying. The comment section didn't seem easily.
Well, the tattoo, having been in the Marines, says something about where he was at one point. What the tattoo potentially tells us something about where he is now. So, in both cases, I have not really paid that much attention to Plattner, but to me, in both cases, the question is, where does he stand on these things now? Like, I don't immediately write somebody off for having been in the military at some point, depending on what they did while they were there. But to me, the question is, where are they now about that? Have they come to the realization that actually they were very much on the wrong side of history? And, or do they boast about it like that fucking West Side Tyler asshole, and actually like boast about being involved in war crimes. Like, to me, it comes down to what their position is on these things now, and the extent to which I find it credible that that is their actual position and not just something they're saying because it's consistent with their career.
Convinced, but who knows if that is an accurate representation of how he was received over there. But for that clip that we just saw...
But to say that this is a bombshell is wild.
In the lead up, Bernie was talking about the AI industry and the impact that it's likely to have on jobs and the economy. So here's the follow-up from Tim Dillon that led to Bernie's response on the border and immigration. It's kind of a long setup, though, so it's been chopped up a little bit, cut down for time.
I think a lot of people don't like to see people zip tied in the middle of the street, but they do look at the Biden.
I mean, he's certainly part of a bourgeois party.
People, and they're suffering, and their health care doesn't exist or is too expensive, and you're looking at all the people coming in. So my question is there a position that the Democratic Party can take that is obviously anti-people getting dragged out of their houses, but recognizes citizenship should mean something?
Well, citizenship should mean something. I love how citizenship should mean something. Whenever you hear shit like this, it always means that you have to treat non-citizens way worse. It's like what you'll sometimes hear right-wingers... I mean, I've seen this in Germany, I've seen this in Britain and other places as well. They'll talk about making work pay. And they don't mean increasing the minimum wage, improving benefits, improving, paid time off and stuff like that. What they mean is making unemployment benefits worse, so it's harder to survive on them. And this is what we're talking about. I've not heard of this Tim Dillon, although I'm already getting a sense that he... Does he? I have not. I've seen bits about the Nazi tat, and that is basically it. I was kind of aware that he was running, but beyond that, what has he said about Plattner, China? Curious. Just looking up what he has said on China. And it doesn't seem like he's actually said anything on China. At least Google's not turning anything up. Do you have a link for that? Because I just Googled his name and China, and literally nothing comes up on the first page of results, which...
border, and that, having laws that protect workers is important, and that people employing undocumented workers or illegal labor is driving down wages.
Which is just a lie. I mean, we'll leave aside the fact that he's saying protect workers, and then he's very clearly saying except these workers. But, I mean, this line is bullshit. First of all, there's no evidence that they do drive down wages. What is true is they work for cheaper in sectors that largely are carved out entirely for them. In the sense that nobody else is actually looking for work in those sectors. But here's the thing. Why are they working for cheaper? Nobody ever actually, who is using this talking point, ever actually answers that. Because, I mean, unless you actually believe that they're somehow inherently cheaper, it doesn't make any sense. Because after all, they're here. They have the same cost of living as anyone else here. In fact, their cost of living may be higher because they're probably also sending remittances back to their families wherever they're from. So that means they have to cover their cost of living here, plus something in addition. So, if anything, Oh, okay. Didn't know that. Well, like I said, I've not really been following this guy. If anything, then, you would expect, all things being equal, that immigrant workers would want more money because their cost of living is in many ways higher, but they get paid less. And the only reason they get paid less is because there are immigration restrictions that make it dangerous for them to hold out for more, because they can just get deported. In fact, in a program that was initiated by Bill Clinton, who has contributed more than just about anyone to making like all of Trump's horrible fucking immigration raids and shit possible by sponsoring something called IRERA, the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act. One of the things that he did in the context of that was to initiate a program that allowed people who employed workers who might not have legal status to call immigration on themselves and get amnesty from any kind of fines that might be incurred. So naturally, employers realized that this was a wonderful tool they could use for union busting, because anytime a migrant labor force starts talking union, starts complaining about the shitty wages and the shitty conditions, they can just call up the INS and now ICE and get them just kicked out of the fucking country. That is why their work is cheaper. If the people who try to make this about, immigrants driving down wages were serious about that, they would be arguing against immigration restrictions and instead arguing in favor of enforcing labor rights, broadly across the board. Because they're not enforced in this country at all. There are not, Reagan tanked the Department of Labor inspection budget back in the 80s, and it hasn't actually recovered since. For a city like New York, there are, with millions of people working, there are 2 DOL inspectors to check on wages and working conditions and shit like that. Like, if the people who may use this talking point gave a fuck about workers' wages, they would be talking about that and not actually advocating for policies that will make migrant labor even cheaper
for Americans.
So in his response, Bernie said that there are about 10 million undocumented people in this country, or roughly 3%, and he said that his own father immigrated here from Poland illegally. So throughout the segment, Dylan said a few times that he did not agree with the inhumane treatment of people at the hands of ICE.
Like, yeah, but what does that mean? Because the thing is, they've been inhumane all along. Like, immigration enforcement in this country has never been humane. I mean, there are very few places where you could actually claim that it ever has been humane. But the U.S. certainly isn't that. So if somebody says that and all they mean is they don't like seeing, seeing these images of raids on their televisions, all they're saying is they don't want to hear about it. And we already saw how that works. Where, when suddenly deportations went way up under Biden, and interest in what ICE is doing on the part of liberals went way, way fucking down.
He did not agree with their tactics, but he did acknowledge that immigration is a huge issue for people on the right, specifically people who are worried.
Well, yeah, I wonder why it is that that right-wingers have a problem with immigrants, and if there are maybe certain exceptions to that problem, certain kinds of immigrants they're more okay with, that in fact might tell us a little bit about why they're so concerned about this issue.
About jobs and wages. So let's watch this interaction.
Like, right-wingers don't give a shit about jobs and wages. I mean, that's the other thing. Like, since when did they give a shit about... If they cared about jobs and wages, they'd be calling for an increase in the fucking minimum wage.
Who is really to blame for the unchecked immigration in this country?
There isn't unchecked immigration in this country. I mean, that is just a fucking bald-faced lie. Anyone peddling that line is just completely full of shit. Either they have not done the basics, the absolute most basic research on the subject, or they hope that their audience doesn't, because the reality is anything but. For one thing, this number of 10 million people without legal status, people say undocumented, which actually is not accurate. They don't have legal status, but they didn't enter with, most of them, the overwhelming majority entered the normal way. And they had legal status, and then they lost it, because it is staggeringly easy to lose legal status in the U.S., because the U.S. immigration law is fucking draconian and unpredictable.
And it's particularly interesting what Tim Dillon had to say.
What are most of those people doing right now? Are they...
Oh, working hard. None of those people should be faulted for coming here.
Okay.
We should start faulting people like Steve Wynn, who run $1 billion hotel on
okay. But what does that mean if we're saying we're not faulting them for coming here? Does that mean that your solution does not involve kicking them out again and completely fucking up their lives? Or does that mean that your solution, or does that just mean that you think that there should be more fines for people who employ them?
On illegal labor. Why aren't we enforcing E-Verify?
If we enforce E-Verify, their lives get worse. So you're saying we shouldn't fault them for coming here, but we should enforce E-Verify, which will make their lives fucking impossible. Even more impossible than their lives already are, and their lives are not very possible to begin with.
What's interesting is instead of using Steve Wynn as his example for that, he could have just used Donald Trump, because we all know that he is guilty of this exact same thing. But this isn't the first time that Bernie has addressed the idea of an open border and what...
Well, yeah, I mean, in fact, the idea of an open border is kind of a weird way of putting it. The term really is the lie that the U.S. has one.
What it would mean for the nation state. So here he is back.
I mean, if you want to see what a fucking open border looks like, go, travel between Germany and Austria. Now, let me just be clear, the external border of the EU and the Schengen zone is not open at all, and that thing kills tens of thousands of people, refugees who are desperately trying to fucking get into the EU in order to make asylum claims, which they have every fucking right to do. But the internal borders are actually open. And you can tell because you can travel from fucking Rosenheim to Kufstein, that Rosenheim in Germany, to Kufstein in Austria, and if you don't pay attention, you won't know when you switched countries, except that maybe, I mean, your phone doesn't even go on roaming now, because there's EU-wide roaming coverage, which I have to say rocks. As somebody who racked up huge roaming bills for a while, because that didn't exist, and had to, back years ago. But, the idea that the U.S. has an open border anywhere is just wild and does not withstand the slightest inquiry.
2015, talking to a little baby Ezra Klein.
Open borders. That's a Koch brothers proposal.
No, it fucking isn't.
The idea, of course, I mean, that's a right-wing proposal.
No, it fucking isn't.
Which says, essentially, there is no United States. But
I mean, there shouldn't be. And wow, a young Ezra Klein looks like Rishi Sunak.
It would make a lot of the global poor richer, wouldn't it?
And it'd make everybody in America poor.
No, it wouldn't. I mean, and the other thing that's bullshit about this, and he knows it perfectly well because he's been on the record, he's talked a lot about NAFTA. And if you know anything about NAFTA, you know that when it comes to capital, the borders are wide open, particularly between the U.S., Mexico, and Canada. When it comes to capital and when it comes to rich people who own capital, the borders are wide open. There are special visas you can get to get into the U.S. just on account of being rich. That's all. I mean, you just show you have a certain bank balance, and suddenly you get the VIP treatment at the fucking border. The borders are wide open to capital, but workers are held to ransom. by their local ruling classes.
With the concept of a nation state. And I don't think there's any country in the world which believes in that. I think we have to raise wages in this country. I think we have to do everything that we can to create the millions of jobs. You think we should open the borders and bring in a lot of low-wage workers?
Why are they... Yeah, like, I mean, this is something that anyone serious should challenge him on, because why are they low-wage? Yeah, like, what... I mean, he should be asked. Like, does he think their labor is worth inherently less? Because there's only one reason they're low-wage, and that is simply because the immigration restrictions he supports vigorously, to the extent that he was, like, not long after or before this, he was, like, the lone Democrat to join a Republican amendment that was about surveillance of paramilitary activity on the southern border. And the Republicans wanted to exempt neo-Nazi groups from that. This is like 2014, 2015, somewhere in there. And Sanders joined them in that. That you know, like Minutemen and these other fascist paramilitary shitlords should not be subject to any kind of surveillance on the border, but other people should. Like, I mean, he has gotten a fucking free ride on this because most people don't pay attention to this. And there have been, like, he really, and the result is, like, people act all surprised when he says this. But he's been anti-immigrant for a long time, and what he says sucks.
What do you think? Maybe we should try to get jobs for those kids. So I think from a moral responsibility, we've got to work with the rest of the industrialized world to address the problems of international poverty, but you don't.
Well, except you're literally saying work with the rest of the people who are the beneficiaries of that poverty. Like, the reason these countries are the industrialized world is because they're fucking pillaging the countries where these workers are coming from. They're literally going to the places where the wealth from their country is going. I mean, he has a vision and he has an ideology. It's just a shitty vision and a shitty ideology. It's just fucking reactionary social democracy. He's a centrist sockdem. And it is a testament to how fucking right-wing everybody else is in Congress that he even seems like a left alternative. If you were to go back to just, within living memory, go back to like the late 80s or something, his positions would be totally unremarkable. In fact, he would be to the right of Reagan, who actually quite proudly enacted, the last amnesty we ever had for undocumented workers. Oh yeah, I mean, he absolutely is. And because I'm familiar to some extent with his positions back before he got into federal politics, I have no doubt that he knows exactly what he's doing here. He isn't just spouting fucking bullshit talking points. He knows, without knowing them, he knows perfectly well what he's doing.
Don't do that by making people in this country even poorer.
And of course, he manages to find a way to be shitty on imperialism at the same time.
So, there's quite a few things going on here, but I did like...
Yeah, you could say that. There are, indeed, quite a few things going on here.
Idea of covering this story because here is Bernie Sanders going on Tim Dillon's podcast. This is a more right-leaning audience. I think he does have some sympathies with the left, and that was clear as I was watching the interview, I think.
Like what? Because you haven't shown it in your clips.
But his audience
like left of what?
Still very right-wing. And this is just judging from the comments. And again, like, I don't know how actually representative that is of the people watching. But, they were very critical of Bernie Sanders on a few different things. He's very old. That kept coming up. And it's true, like, if we want term limits for Mitch McConnell, that goes for Bernie Sanders too. That's the way it goes.
And like, okay, yeah, that's... Yeah, I mean, obviously that's the issue.
I think people who argue for that understand that. But also, I think the Democrats, they take a lot of flack because a lot of what we hear from the right is that, oh, the Democrats, they want open borders. They don't believe in borders. They think they just want to let everybody in.
Which is such bullshit. Because again, and the thing is, Democrats do more deportations. In fact, deportations are down since January of this month. Because fucking, Trump likes the sound of his own voice, and he likes things to be visible, or to him they didn't happen. And the result of that is that everybody's warned, everybody knows exactly what's going on. It's got a lot of people frightened and pissed off, and they are responding by organizing and, taking the warnings seriously, and so it's harder to, actually abduct people. But the idea that Democrats are pro-immigrant rights, that is an absolute fantasy.
And that is not the stance for most people that I know on the left, right?
That suggests that maybe you don't know anyone on the left.
Understand that there should be some kind of border control, that there should be legal pathways to citizenship, and if those pathways are not cutting it, then I would like to see some kind of reform there.
They obviously are not cutting it, though. And, what does that mean? What does that mean, cutting it? And why exactly should the left want to even be making that distinction, to be honest?
Instead of whatever we're seeing now, which is
we're all fucking workers.
People who are already here.
It's amazing how many of these fucking sock dems and liberal sock dems and whatever can be, and some people who actually will claim to be some kind of revolutionary leftist. You will find even people who superficially will claim to be communists, saying bullshit like this. And it's amazing just how many of them can just be utterly trolled by a very brief clip from the movie Mate One, where the main character is responding to a bunch of these minors mouthing off about immigrants and black people who have come, we have been brought in as scabs unknowingly.
Here for years, people who are working, people who are paying taxes, all kinds of things. Whatever it is, these people are not the problem. The people who are the problem are the ones who are employing them, specifically, the billionaires who are profiting off of their cheap labor and things like that. So
and the way to make their labor not cheap is to remove immigration restrictions, take all the money that is spent on ICE and all of that hideous bullshit, and spend it on enforcing labor rights, maybe. Practically just not having ICE, not having deportation cops would in itself increase the bargaining power of these workers. They're not taking lower wages because they just want to work for less money.
I think it was good that Bernie was able to go there and at least say out loud to a right-wing audience, no, it's not good to have open borders. There is something that needs to be done about the border because...
And we're gonna just pretend that I'm used to people like PragerU pretending that open borders are a thing that exists anywhere in the U.S. I would have thought that TYT, as shit as they are, might actually be a little bit more honest about what the reality of these borders are and what open borders actually look like. Another example of an open border, more or less open border, is the one in Ireland. Since the Belfast Agreement, you can just walk from one side of that border to the other side of the border, from the Free State to the British occupation zone and back. And the only way that you notice that you have crossed a border is that the speed limits are in miles versus kilometers.
At least they would hear that from a Democrat or a leftist Democrat, if not just a regular moderate Democrat.
So I think there's a lot of things happening
yeah, there are.
One time here.
that is causing a bit of a stir, especially amongst people who we call being on the left here in America.
I mean, whoever the hell TYT calls being on the left. I've never. It seems like that's a pretty elastic category, to be honest.
What folks need to understand is that Bernie Sanders is the only leftist in the entire United States Senate. And what the left is a worker movement.
Okay, where are you going with this, though? I mean, if we're gonna say that it's a worker movement, and we're talking about how to treat workers whose only difference is they were born someplace else and they don't have the same fucking papers as us, then, I mean, if we're a worker movement, then obviously the thing is that we don't give a shit what their fucking papers say. That's the rule. That's some bullshit the ruling class came up with. They're our comrades.
It's not this identity affinity group. It's not, and it's about
do you not know what an affinity? He was going to say identity politics, and then he said affinity group, and I'm beginning to think he does not know what an affinity group is, because those are two very different things.
Workers and what's best for them and their jobs, and how through their work they can manifest dignified lives.
No, it's not through their... Wait, what does that mean? Through their work they can manifest dignified lives? What does that even mean?
What the Bernie clip on Tim Dillon is bumping up against on, the left in the United States is that, especially amongst progressives and amongst the groups, the activists...
Oh, the groups! Okay, that tells us a lot about... Matt Iglesias, as far as I can tell, has been the origin of this. Yeah, of, this idea that is very popular amongst right-wing Dems that they should ignore the groups. By which they mean, immigrant communities, LGBT people, supporters of reproductive rights, supporters of workers' rights. Literally, I mean... black people as well are the groups. So, I mean, if you actually listen to the people who use that term. So, I mean, I guess he's also, arguing that people shouldn't listen to him. I mean, you don't get to pick and choose. These right-wing fucking talking points. This right-wing terminology means a certain thing. And it's literally everybody who actually votes for, would have any likelihood of voting for Democrats. In any case, because they would never vote for Republicans, because Republicans fucking openly hate them. So when you hear the groups, you know you're getting some right-wing bullshit.
Of groups, the issues that get the most energy are the ones that can be painted as racial and identity-based. And immigration is one of those issues.
Yeah, well, because the whole thing, the whole anti-immigrant thing is very racist. That's why there are huge numbers of European immigrants here, white European immigrants here who overstay, they don't have their papers. There's no fear-mongering bullshit around them.
And so whenever they hear somebody be like, no, we shouldn't have an open border and we should have a strict immigration policy.
We have the most restrictive immigration laws, some of the most restrictive immigration laws in the fucking world.
Or not a strict one, or one that makes sense for American workers.
So you're saying not all workers?
It kind of bumps up against their ideology.
Yeah, well, yes, it's called fucking supporting the working class.
Dude, literally, the stuff that they get the most animated about...
It's so weird how leftists have this problem with scabbing. Isn't that just weird how leftists seem to not like scabbing? They don't like it when you fucking stab entire marginalized sections of the working class in the back. That's such a weird leftist tick.
It's racially based stuff, and immigration is one that you can easily make a case for being race-based.
Well, yeah, because it literally is.
So I think I don't see I think you can disagree with Bernie on the sort of substance of it. Just like, well, you know, there's an easy solution to that. We can make all these people full citizens.
I mean, yeah, actually, he's kind of, okay, I don't know who this guy is. I'm kind of going based on what I'm hearing from him, trying to gauge where he's coming from, and it seems he's got a whole lot of things that he's trying to say, and he's doing the same thing. I mean, I'm not, this is not a criticism, let me be clear, because I do it too. You have a bunch of things coming up in your head, and they're all relevant. You might want to make sure you get them all in, and so it becomes a little bit difficult to follow you. So I don't, so I'm not sure where he's coming from, although he is on TYT, which tells me a few things. But the thing is, like, when he says that, I mean, that does actually make the point. Because if the idea, because he's, you know, that acknowledges that the reason they're paid less is because employers can get away with it because they've got immigration restrictions hanging over their head like a sword of Damocles.
Therefore not, you know, subject to the precarity of this liminal, illegal, half-legal status where employers like
yes!
like Donald.
Okay, yes, absolutely. Okay, I don't know who this guy is. And, you know, being on TYT doesn't count much for him, but he's, I mean, this is exactly right. And it is the exact sort of thing that anyone serious really ought to confront dickheads like Sanders with, because it is obvious. Unless you're going to just say something racist, just be really extremely racist, and say that their work is inherently worth less, then obviously the reason that their work is worth less is that they're under a sword of Damocles.
Trump, like, you know, many of the other huge employers in this country, that they subject undocumented people to terrible wages, and just because they have this like precarity dangling over them, that they basically exploit the hell out of these guys, and then by doing so are artificially depressing the wages
yes!
of the modal American
okay,
market.
yes! Like, thank fuck. Okay, somebody says it. This is exactly, I mean, yes. Absolutely, this is it. And the minute you start to say, I mean, and the thing is, the minute you actually say the thing about, let's just make them all citizens, which, yeah, why the fuck not, actually? In fact, I mean, I can't help remembering, back when Germany was actually just beginning to sort of globify together into a single country rather than a whole bunch of small nation states, Goethe, the poet, author of Faust, amongst other things, he was involved in, like, writing the draft constitution, and he had this line in there where they basically said that if you set foot, you know, that if you set foot in the land, then you are part of it, essentially. I don't remember the exact words, but I mean, but the thing is, the minute you say that, the minute you start from a premise of saying, this is why these people can be exploited to this level, and if we eliminate those causes, then suddenly that won't be the case, then you are arguing for open borders, because open borders are how you get there. Like, if the borders are open and anyone can and people can just come in and work on the same terms as anybody else, the problem goes away.
You can disagree with Bernie on the sort of substance of it, but to say that, oh, it's ridiculous to imply that we should have a quote-unquote secure border.
But, God, okay, wait a second. These things do actually contradict each other a little bit. Because if you're saying the only legitimate concern here is that it potentially allegedly drives down wages, though there's not really a lot of evidence that that's the case, and you say that actually the way to combat that is to get rid of the immigration restrictions that make their labor cheaper, then why are you going to come back and like pretend that a more secure border when it's already a fucking militarized absolute terror zone for both for people trying to cross and people who just live near it? Why are you gonna be talking like that's an actual thing that makes sense?
Or that undocumented people and their artificially suppressed low wages affect the wages of American workers. I just think you're ridiculous. I'm sorry.
Like, I think he might have given himself whiplash there.
Yeah, well, a few things that you said there. I didn't want to interrupt you, but you talked about immigration being a racial and identity issue.
Yes.
Bernie, actually, he did address that right after the clips that I showed you. And it was brought up. Culture war drama was brought up.
Oh, God. This is a term that needs to die. Because this is a term that is used... I'm sure people in chat are aware of this. If somebody isn't, you just listen to it and you'll notice it's used to dismiss the importance of life and death issues for people that the person who is talking about it doesn't care about.
Earlier in the interview, but Bernie Sanders, in his response about immigration, he did say, something that I hate about Donald Trump that he does is something that authoritarian leaders have done throughout history.
You mean, advocate anti-immigrant policies in order to...
And he said, like with Hitler, he demonized the Jews and, the Romani people and all these different groups of people that were demonized. And they say, this is the reason why your life is bad. This is the reason why you can't find a job. This is the reason why you can't afford.
Which is a bit wild for him to be saying that at the same time as he is giving credence to exactly that sort of talking point.
Or groceries or whatever. All your problems is because of this group of people. But that group of people is usually like already super marginalized, already not making a ton of money, already not any kind of group that has a significant amount of political power. And I thought it was funny earlier when you also said, there's a lot going on in this interview and in these clips. There was a lot going on in the interview. And I meant...
Yeah, Jules. I mean, that's the thing. If the real concern here is that they're not getting paid enough, that workers in general are not getting paid enough, then the thing to do is to make sure they get paid more. And make sure that employers stick to that and that they face enforcement action if they don't. If that's the real issue that people who advocate for immigration restrictions and further border militarization, say they're concerned about, then, I mean, there you go. Just increase the fucking minimum wage and make sure it applies across the board. And, in fact, reverse the fucking Clinton amnesty where the employers who hyper-exploit migrant labor get amnesty if they call ICE, I mean, at the time it was the INS, now it's ICE, though, on their workforce, and make it so the workforce gets amnesty for any kind of shit that they might be up to, as long as they're calling, as long as they, call the labor inspectors on their employer, or something, to get them to pay back wages and shit. Like, if this is the real issue, if this is genuinely what the concern is, then it is actually that, it is in fact that fucking easy. But it's just not the real concern. And you can tell because the fact that you never hear anyone make this proposal.
Mentioned that I had to cut down the question that Tim...
Well, I mean, this last guy kind of did, and then he kind of walked it back.
Was asking Bernie Sanders, because he did bring up quite a few things all at once, and then Bernie would try to respond to everything that he had brought up. So like the interview was kind of hard to parse together, but I didn't think it was necessarily a bad interview. I thought that Tim Dillon was very engaged, and he did bring up a lot of interesting points. And
well, I mean, here's a thing that somebody ought to do. Like these people, it takes somebody who claims that there's an open border on the southern border and have them try to cross it without going through the normal, official port of entry. Just have them try to figure it out. And just follow them and do a documentary as they try to figure out how the hell to get there. And find out that the only way that you can really is to go through a whole bunch of extremely inhospitable desert where people regularly fucking die of exposure and starvation and dehydration and hope that you fucking survive. I mean, I would like to see one of these people who claims that there are open borders actually demonstrate it for us, for real.
Bernie, again, as I said, he said a lot of the things that we would expect him to say, that we're
Yes, he was on his bullshit.
Say by now, but the audience was different, and I think that is huge. I think that really matters. It was funny, but one of the big criticisms against Bernie Sanders came from people who were supporters of him or were formerly supporters of him
Okay, I'm gonna move on. I think we've seen what there was to see. And now we're going to hear from everybody's favorite special little guy, Ben Shapiro.
On today's Ben Shapiro, President Trump honors Charlie Kirk with a posthumous Medal of President.
Will anyone fight the radicalization? And I don't look at these in advance for the most part. I did not know what this was going to be really for sure. But this is from 9 days ago, and he's still fucking on about fucking Charlie Kirk. Of course he is. Everybody else has fucking moved on. Most people didn't give a shit to begin with.
Potential freedom. Plus, we get to a supposed blockbuster Politico story about groyperism, white supremacy, ugly stuff inside young Republican chats. What does that mean?
Ugly stuff. That's an interesting way of putting it.
What is the duty of conservatives to quote-unquote unify with such stuff? We'll get to all of it. First, October is packed with new releases on Daily Wire. Plus, tonight is a big one, the premiere of Friendly Fire. Join me, Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, and Andrew Klavan. Unscripted, unfiltered, no moderators, nothing off limits. Live.
God, that sounds like a train wreck.
7 p.m. Eastern. Plus, special appearances from Isabel Brown and Jeremy Boring with your first look at the Pendragon cycle. That all kicks off.
Oh wow, a special appearance from Jeremy Boring, the guy who grifts with subscription-based right-wing razors, because like you don't want to shave with a woke razor that you only have to buy once and doesn't get an immediate direct debit from your account every month until you remember to fix it. You obviously need the racist razor, because otherwise you might be like getting a nice shave with something that's woke.
Tonight, don't wait. Join now. Get 40% off a new annual membership with code FALL40 at dailywire.com. Well, folks, President Trump is back in the United States, and on his first day back in the United States, which was Tuesday, he did something incredibly moving. He posthumously awarded America's highest civilian honor to our friend Charlie Kirk, who, of course, was assassinated just a few weeks ago. Erica Kirk talked as well. Here was the President of the United States granting that extraordinary honor to Charlie.
Extraordinary honor. I mean, I guess it is. I mean, you share that with fucking George W. Bush and all sorts of other pieces of shit. I mean, I guess as honors for turds go, it's a pretty good one.
Assassinated in the prime of his life for boldly speaking the truth, for living his faith and relentlessly fighting for a better and stronger America. I love this country, and that's why this afternoon it's my privilege to posthumously.
Yeah. Okay. Don't need to hear more of the. This is we're here for somebody else's bullshit.
Person who spoke publicly. He was, in fact, a mover and shaker inside the Republican Party. He was a major force behind the re-election of President Trump in 20.
I mean, really, the major force behind that was the DNC, if we're honest, but okay.
24, and he was very tight with the Vice President of the United States. Obviously, TPUSA was gearing up as a major force.
I can't hear that abbreviation without thinking of the Great Cornholio.
Behind the Vice President's potential campaign in 2028. Here's the President of the United States.
So we hold his memory in our hearts forever, every single day of this administration.
What if I hold it in another organ?
For which he lived, and he really did. He lived for this country, he lived for his wife and his family, but he lived for this country too. In Charlie's honor, we will continue like we have been to fight, and to win. We're going to win so much.
In a minute, we're going to talk about what strategy it takes to win. Because one thing about Charlie, that Charlie was very much in favor.
Okay, when are we going to talk about fighting the radicalization?
And that list continues. The State Department says the President and Secretary of State Marco Rubio will defend our borders, our culture, and our citizens by enforcing our immigration laws. Aliens who take advantage of America's hospitality.
What hospitality?
While celebrating the assassination of our citizens will be removed. And of course, that makes perfect sense. It is worth noting.
I mean, it's funny because all these guys, It really says something that just how little whiplash there seems to be in their audiences, because all these motherfuckers used to be talking about, oh, we gotta stop the censorship and everything. What about the First Amendment? What about my free speech and everything like that? And now they're like, oh, well, if you don't pretend to be sad about Charlie Kirk, you should be deported from the country. I mean, of course, they only ever gave a shit about free speech for Nazis. That's obvious. But it is still just so fucking remarkable on a certain level to hear them just sort of casually say this.
Thing, by the way, that MSNBC was the only major news network not to air that Medal of Freedom ceremony for Charlie Kirk, which is really quite a...
I mean, that's like the first good thing I've heard about MSNBC in a very long time. Like, I mean, that isn't fucking news. Like, why were the other ones airing it? That's just crap.
CNN aired the ceremony. The fact that MSNBC refused to do so, it wasn't as though there was a lot on the TV at that point. I mean, the president...
Well, I mean, there's probably something better than that, though. Because that's just not hard.
The United States had virtually the entire cabinet there as he honored Charlie Kirk. Plus, Eric...
I mean, all the more reason to find another channel.
Kirk was there as well. It is typical MSNBC to instead tune to some other topic.
I mean, it's typical of most viewers as well to want to watch anything else other than that. I mean, not that what you're describing just now, a fucking posthumous Medal of Honor for a white nationalist grifter, presided over by some of the worst, like, fucking fascist toilet monster assholes that we've seen in high places in a while. Like, not that that isn't riveting viewing. I mean, if you need to induce vomiting, but why is any of that news? There's a press release. You can just read the fucking press release. If, like, anyone... Like, what? Did people have money on who got the Medal of Freedom?
But this speaks to...
Who gives a shit?
The broader problem of violence and extremism and radical rhetoric and radical action.
Oh, okay, we're going to talk about fighting the radicalization, which, of course, Ben Shapiro had nothing to do with.
Inside the United States, not just people who are imported from outside the United States, who hate enormous parts of our culture, who hate the central basis of our civilization.
Wait, okay. So he's saying Charlie Kirk is the central basis of U.S. civilization? I mean, that seems ahistorical, and I actually think that is almost unduly harsh, but not entirely wrong either, which is why the civilization kind of could use a little bit of replacing.
But people who have been brought up in the United States to hate precisely that civilization.
Well, what, white nationalism? Yeah. I mean, he sucks. People hate things that suck.
It's a sort of shocking thing that so many members of the left are willing to look at the other way. Obviously, the most obvious example recently is the Attorney General candidate in Virginia, Jay Jones.
Like, look the other way at what? I mean, this wasn't one of ours. This was one of yours, Ben.
Who was caught on a text thread to a Republican saying that he wished for the death of the Virginia Speaker of the House of Delegates, and then made some extraordinarily terrible comments about the Speaker's children.
Well, I mean, it would be so weird. I can understand. Ben is very sensitive about this. He would never support wishing for the death of people. And if I had actual production values on here, I would then cue up the clip of all the people that say Charlie Kirk wished for the death of and celebrated the death of, and say Ben Shapiro celebrated the death of. Like, motherfucker acting like talking about like violence and radicalization or whatever, and pretending that this hasn't been what he's made his money off of.
He is still in the race in Virginia. There have been very few Democratic calls for him to drop.
I mean, I don't give a shit about electoral politics for the most part, but I mean, just based on that, I kind of hope he wins.
Of the race. In just a moment, we'll get to the supposed big story of the day, a Politico story about young Republicans using white supremacist, Nazi-adjacent rhetoric. And all
yeah, well, I mean, we don't need to talk about... I thought we were talking about the radicalization. Now you're saying, oh, well, the Nazi shit, that's okay. I mean, that's not radicalization, so it's not liking Nazi shit? Well, like, I mean, how big of a capo are you planning on being, Ben?
We are being watched every time you use the internet. Your internet service provider, or ISP, is recording everything you do online. They're watching what website you go to and how much time you spend there. They can see everything you're doing, even if you're using a private browser. Don't want to fall victim to this? You don't have to. Just get ExpressVPN. With ExpressVPN, 100%.
Okay, let me just check something.
Is routed through secure encrypted servers.
Okay, is ExpressVPN one of them? Yeah, okay. Yeah, so, I mean, the fucking VPN company that he's spruiking here is ExpressVPN, an Israeli VPN company. So, I mean, if you want to be surveilled by the surveillance professionals of genocidal regime, I mean, that's a great one. BDS target, don't use ExpressVPN.
For my ISP to see what I'm doing online. ExpressVPN also hides my IP address, the number that identifies you on the internet. Data brokers use it to build a profile on you, and then they sell it to marketers and other...
Nobody but Unit 8200 can see it.
Companies. ExpressVPN is easy to use, just takes one click. It works on all your devices, phones, tablets, smart TVs, desktops. You can have it on up to 14 devices all at once, so you can give the gift of privacy and freedom to your entire family. As I'm traveling a lot right now, means my ExpressVPN is on all the time, so I'm constantly using public Wi-Fi and all the rest. Right now, you can get an extra 4 months when you use my special link.
I mean, this is great to hear because I hope they have a nice big data breach.
VPN.com/Ben. Get 4 extra months to what we do here at the Daily Wire. They also believe in creating American jobs and supporting small business. I don't think that's a real candidacy. I think it's chimerical. But Josh Shapiro called for accountability after the arsonist who set fire to the Pennsylvania governor's residence, which forced Josh Shapiro and his family to evacuate, received 25 to 50 years in prison. That particular arsonist was 38 years old. Rhetorical terms of that actually calling out the ideological structure issue.
I've talked to people who are thinking about running for office, who've said they don't want to because they don't want to put their families at risk. These are good people.
It's the thing that needs.
I mean, but I have to say, Josh Shapiro's standards about who's good people are not ones that I would rely heavily on.
And so when Josh Shapiro doesn't call out the fact that this person was a radical pro-Hamas activist,
he wasn't,
who did this, that is a missed opportunity and in fact a moral shortcoming. The fact that Democrats are not calling out the ideological thought structure that led to Charlie's assassination.
I mean, you mean calling out Groypers? Calling out your audience?
We've talked about on the show this thought structure that says that you're a member of a victimized group and that the superstructure of society is targeting you, and
that's not...
that therefore you have every ability, nay, every moral impetus to go and do violence to somebody else.
Like, okay, for example...
The failure to call that out, particularly when it comes to trans violence, is a huge...
Which doesn't exist. I mean, and here, let me just say, this is... Because this is important. You'll sometimes hear people, liberals especially, saying, oh, you know, people shouldn't be defending their communities because that will give Trump an excuse. And the fact that these pricks are still doing this thing where they talk about trans violence as if it is a thing that exists should disabuse everyone of the notion that they need a pretext. They will just say something and run with it. They don't give a shit whether it's true or not. The people who matter will at the very least pretend to believe it. Like, what trans violence? All he means is that Nazis say that mass shooters are trans. Like, whether or not they are, because they're not. They do this in order to distract from the fact that they're Nazis.
Huge problem, obviously. And the entire left...
No, it fucking isn't.
...silent on all of that. When the left...
Because it... Wow, I mean, that's so weird. People are silent about this thing that's not happening. God, that's terrible. He's right. People need to break the silence about this big thing that's not happening.
Generally goes silent on Jay Jones and pretend that what he was saying about the Speaker of the House, that he was a fascist, this sort of language is...
I mean, he probably is, let's just say.
Problem.
Yeah, so the problem is pointing out people's ideological positions. You know, the weird thing about fucking Ben Shapiro, as I'm looking at him, is he looks like Gen AI. There's something about his texture that just looks like a fucking Dolly Mini came up with him.
It is a problem. It is a problem when a Democratic Party volunteer is found handing a bracelet to a child that literally says, "Is he dead yet?" referring to President Trump.
Well, I mean, sometimes you gotta bring joy to children.
According to Mediaite, that would have been Wisconsin's Winnebago County Democratic Party volunteer, who apparently handed that bracelet to an 8-year-old at a local farmer's market. According to Katie Neubauer and her family, they were attending the Oshkosh Farmers Market last Saturday when this...
Oh God, will someone not think of the? Will someone please think of the Oshkosh Farmers Market children?
Moment.
They've been exposed to the fact that a lot of people kind of hope that this motherfucker fucking carks it.
Place. Here was Katie Neubauer describing to Fox WLUK 11.
Oh, I can't wait.
In Green Bay and surrounding cities.
Katie Neubauer says she and her family were enjoying their Saturday morning at the Oshkosh Farmers Market this past weekend. But things took a turn, she says, when her 8-year-old child was handed a bracelet from a member of the Winnebago County Democratic Party's booth.
The guy behind the tent table said, "Hey, give this to your mom. She's going to really want this." And
I mean, I immediately the level of remove between this booth and this bracelet immediately makes me wonder if this actually happened at all.
one of the children comes running up, gives us the bracelet, and we're looking at it, and it literally says, "Is he dead yet?" on the bracelet.
Neubauer and the Republican Party of Winnebago County assumed this was a hate speech reference to President Donald Trump.
That's not how hate speech works.
Trump.
I like how they see somebody with, it doesn't say that, it just says he. But of course, I mean, you talk to apparently the Winnebago County Republican Party, they understand that there's only one person that everybody's asking that about.
Fox 11 was unable to get a photo of the bracelets.
Unable to get a photo of the bracelets. Okay, so that's sounding absolutely just totally plausible now. So there's this very convenient remove from the actual booth, and there's no photo of the bracelet, but this totally happened. And also, who cares?
We've been working to get questions answered by the county Democratic Party.
Okay, so again, the fact that this has become so mainstream, and it is. I mean, to pretend that these sort of...
Well, maybe the reason that... I mean, leaving aside that this really actually sounds very much like something in the category of things that didn't happen. Because there's no photo of this fucking bracelet? Like, how is it written on there? I mean, is it like IHDY? Like, WWJD or something like that? Is it like beads? Is it just like a hospital bracelet or an event bracelet with some shit written on it? Like, why is there no photo of it? We're saying that somebody living in this year of 2025 saw this outraging bracelet that they picked up and were given by their child, who was told by somebody who's totally working with the Winnebago County Democratic Party to give it to her because she would love it. And she didn't take a photo and immediately post it all over the place like people do of all sorts of shit? I don't know.
Ideological takes are not mainstream would be to ignore the rising tide of violent rhetoric in the country.
Yeah, I mean, or in your case, just profit off of it.
It is also worthwhile noting that it is incumbent on people of all sides to condemn this, particularly from their own side. It's very...
Okay, when are you going to start condemning this from your side, Ben?
Very easy for people on the right to condemn this stuff.
No, they don't. Because, no, they fucking don't. Like, you're not doing it. What do you mean it's easy?
It's not happening on our side.
Yeah, it's so easy to condemn it on their side because they just pretend it isn't happening.
The same way. But when
I mean, yes, it isn't happening in the same way. That's neat. Because, see, like, their version of this happening is that people get shot. Whereas, allegedly, I mean, and this is what's alleged, there isn't, there isn't any verification that this happened, apparently, at least that he's been able to find here. That the alternative version of it is that maybe there was a bracelet somewhere. Like, see, their version isn't the same. Their version involves people getting shot as opposed to bracelets, and we gotta condemn the bracelets. That's nothing like people getting shot.
Ugly things happen on your own side. Yes, you do have some sort of moral duty to take note of this and then to condemn it.
Okay, when are you gonna start doing that, Ben?
This brings me to a story from Politico. There's a story from Politico. It's making the rounds, creating an enormous amount of dyspepsia on the right particularly.
Is it really, though? I haven't seen much sign of it, because, like, right-wingers have been saying the sort of thing that's in these fucking chats that Politico published for a long time. And Capo Ben Shapiro has never been uncomfortable with it, because the thing about Zionists is they always ally themselves with the big anti-Semites.
Titled "I Love Hitler," leaked messages expose young Republicans' racist chats.
Young Republicans here is doing some heavy lifting, because we're talking about people in their 30s.
Okay, so as we'll see, it is questionable about whether that actual line "I love Hitler" was sort of said in jest, or whether.
Oh wait, it's questionable, meaning it definitely did.
Or it was said sort of authentically, right? All those pieces of the chat have been released.
Oh wait, you see, this is him like totally condemning it on his side.
Politico. So here is the story. Well, leaders of young Republican groups throughout the country worried what would happen if their Telegram chat ever got leaked, but they kept typing anyway. They referred to black people as monkeys and the watermelon people, and mused about putting their political opponents in gas chambers.
Yeah, okay, Ben. So that sounds like some stuff you were just talking about how easy it is to condemn this. Let's see you do that. Like. Yeah, it's easy to condemn it from your own side. Okay, go ahead. We got, how long is this? This is a 46-minute video. I assume it's that long because he's going to spend all this time condemning all of the fucking violence that the far right's been doing. Because they're literally, I mean, if you even go by just official FBI statistics, they're the entire terrorist threat in the United States. Nobody else is even worth mentioning.
They talked about their enemies and driving them to suicide, and lauded Republicans who they believed support slavery.
Okay, this is where you get to show us how easy it is to condemn it.
Hendricks, the Kansas Young Republicans vice chair, used the words N-word with an A at the end and N-word with a U-H at the end, variations on the N-word itself.
He did Brahms's N-word variations in A minor.
More than a dozen times in the chat, Bobby Walker, the vice chair of the New York State Young Republicans at the time, referred to as epic. Peter Giunta, who at the time was chair of the same organization, wrote in a message sent in June that everyone that votes no is going to the gas chamber.
Wow, okay. The condemnations must be from Ben. I mean, it must be coming anytime soon, right?
Giunta was referring to an upcoming vote on whether he should become chair of the Young Republican National Federation, the GOP's 15,000-member political organization for Republicans between 18 and 40 years old. Now,
I mean, I just love the fact. I mean, the biggest revelation, as far as I'm concerned, was not even the Nazi. I assumed that was going on because, I mean, every time I've actually seen things to do with young Republican clubs at campus and things like that, there's always Nazi shit going on. So I kind of assumed that was probably going to be going on. That wasn't a shock. But the fact that young by them means 40, that was something. Like, how hard is it for them to find anyone under 30?
A lot of this is edgelordism. It has been existing on the right for years old. Now, a lot of this is edgelordism. It has been
edgelordism.
Been existing on the right, particularly among young right-wingers, for a very long time.
Okay, I'm not hearing a condemnation yet. So far what he's saying is that, yeah, I mean, Nazi shit is just kind of normal in his circles.
In 2015, 2016, I was speaking at some college campus in California, and some kid came over and started using some Groyper memes. And he was,
okay. So
he was doing it in jest.
I'm sure he was. I'm sure he was, Ben. I'm sure everybody is doing these things in jest, Ben. You just keep going.
I said to him, listen, I understand that you're just being an edgelord right now. I'm just telling.
Yeah, where was the footage of this? Can we just run the footage? Because I'm sure this was filmed. if it happened. I mean, the event certainly must have been.
If you put that stuff online, if you put that stuff in chats, if you actually authentically think that stuff, first of all, you're wrong. But second of all, if you put that stuff online, there are social consequences to saying and believing truly terrible things.
Well, yeah, so you can end up having a career like Ben Shapiro's. So, okay, this is his condemnation for, like, neo-Nazi stuff, is that he says that this might hurt your career.
Again, I'm not talking here about whether we should ban people from Facebook. Obviously, the answer is no. Whether we should ban people from YouTube or X.
Wait a second. Wait a second. So if you don't pretend to be sad about Charlie Kirk, you should be banned from the country. But if you're a neo-Nazi, you shouldn't even get banned from Facebook. Wow, I mean, the moral universe of this man. Like... Hang on 1 second.
I've argued in favor of the restoration of people's accounts on these platforms because they are platforms. They are not, in fact, publications.
Yeah, except... at this point, how are you even making that distinction? But also, again, where are the condemnations? Like, okay, so... He said that Nazi stuff might... He scolded this guy and said being open about being a Nazi might have career consequences for you. Like, you might end up being supported by Ben Shapiro, apparently. And then he said Nazi shit should not get you banned from Facebook. I'm still... when is he going to demonstrate? When is he going to prove how easy it is for him to condemn this shit?
However, in your life, there are social consequences to people who say things that you believe are terrible. They don't get to come over to dinner at your house. Or...
Okay, like... Wait a second. This is not a condemnation. You're saying you might want to hide your power level a bit because you won't get some invites. One
example, they don't get to marry your kids, or you don't date them. Or we all have social lines that we draw all the time.
Okay.
And the question is where to draw those lines and how those...
Well, we just heard with the fucking young Republicans where they draw those lines. Like, it seemed... where do you draw the lines, fucking Ben? I mean, we've seen... You draw the line and, like... Okay, you gotta pretend to be sad about Charlie Kirk if you want to be allowed to stay in the country. But if you're just posting all sorts of Nazi shit, he thinks you should not be banned from Facebook. Okay, so that's one line he's drawn. But where's this moral line he keeps talking about?
Those lines ought to be drawn. Listen, there is no question that the shutting tight of the Overton window by the left means that the explosion of the Overton window has let in an enormous amount of garbage. That is just...
Wait. The shutting tight of the Overton window by the left...
It's a reality. And it is the case that this sort of language is routinely used now among some segment, not all, not even a majority, but among some fragmented segment of the right-wing ecosystem.
Well, I mean, it's probably a fairly significant segment, or he probably would be more inclined to just say that they suck, to condemn them or something, to distance himself.
Young people. I mean, that is a reality. More on unity. When should we unify? How should we? With whom should we unify? First,
well, I mean, I think those chats gave us some pretty clear ideas who they do and don't want to unify with, and you seem to be kind of okay with it, except that you're worried that they might not get dinner invites.
If you own is dying. It's not dramatic. It's just science. VHS tapes only last 10 to 20 years. That box in your attic, mold, heat, moisture, it's all eating away at your family history, weddings.
Wait, what the hell? Birthdays. What are we talking about now?
Legacy box.
Oh, okay. We're already into another ad. That segue was just whiplash material.
Wildly time consuming. And I know I'm not alone. When you're a business owner ever...
Shut up. We want to hear you. Okay, what the hell? I never heard of that. We're not going to hear about it. Okay, I'm still waiting for the condemnations.
Is true. All of that is true. 2, the right doesn't have an obligation to go totally insane over such chats. Okay, what the left likes to do and what the media love to do is they love to take stuff like this and then they say to every member of the Republican Party, you must personally condemn all of this.
You just said it was easy for you to do it. Now you're saying that you shouldn't? You just said that leftists and like liberals, really, I mean, what he defines as leftists is kind of up in the air. Well, kind of anyone to the left of Strasse, basically, as far as I can tell.
And the answer should be, I'm happy to condemn the crap in there, but why am I responsible for it? I'm not
because you've been promoting it the whole time. So does this mean you're about to condemn it?
responsible for that. Well, why is the implication even that I'm responsible?
Because you are.
For that. I don't believe it.
I mean, you kind of do. I mean, unless you're saying, I mean, what am I saying? What he believes and what he says, there's no reason to assume that there's much of a relationship between them. Because all these motherfuckers ever really do is say what Chris Rufo tells them to say.
And your implication that everyone on the right is responsible for a group of young Republicans who say terrible things in private to one another. That somehow, that implicates the entire Republican Party. Meanwhile,
well,
Attorney General candidate...
Yeah, okay, this guy just got done saying that trans violence, something that they've made up, that literally is not a thing, implicates all trans people. Literally something they made up. But, like, actually hearing all the Nazi shit from the young Republicans, and this isn't the first time this stuff has come out, that does not implicate the Republican Party. Like, did they get kicked out? Were they sanctioned in any way for doing this? See, that's how you know whether an organization is okay with these things and is therefore implicated in them. What happens when these things come to light? Because people within this organization knew about this well before people in the general public did. Were these people kicked out? Were they suspended from any posts that they were holding, organizational posts? Was there any kind of fucking punishment? If not, then they clearly are okay with it, and they are clearly implicated.
Virginia.
But it is time for me to wrap up. I just thank everybody for joining in. I hope you enjoyed the stream. And if you enjoyed the stream, you'll be happy to know there's more to come on